One thing along the line of this conversation where we haven't got to yet that I think is important is that it's an unfortunate feature of human nature that we're much more motivated to deal with things when they're bad than when they're good. So if you're trying to raise money and you show me how bad something is that I care about, I'm going to give you money to fix it. If you're trying to raise money by saying, look how much better this has got, I'm like, hey man, I don't need to get involved. It's getting better without me. And so as human beings, when we're focused on problems, and of course there's always going to be problems, we tend to focus on the bad. And there's a super negative consequence of that, and that is we don't notice when the world's getting a lot better. And so if we think about the world just in our lifetime, I'm a little older than you, but our basic lifetime, when I was a kid, I don't know if you remember, but Lake Erie caught on fire. You know, how disgusting does water have to be to burn, right? How much sewage and stuff has to be in it? That when I lived in LA for a few months, when my mother went back to school for a little while, and when you were in the hillside of LA, the city disappeared in the smog. Now it's blue skies. It's become an incredibly clear place. There's so many parts of the world that have become so much better. If you look at the kindness of us to each other. So Pinker points this out in both of his books, and this is a super important point. In his book, Better Angels of Our Nature, he shows the data where if you set the rape and homicide rates in 1973, call it 100, whatever they are, we'll just say that's 100, and then you track it over time. By the early 2000s, homicide's gone from 100 to 50, and rape has gone from 100 to 25. Now, homicide is much better tracked than rape, but if you ask yourself, what's more likely for it to be, will rape be underreported more in 1973 or in 2004? You know that it's going to be underreported more in 1973, where people are a lot less sympathetic about it, and the court system is not as well set up for it. So probably that decrease has gone even more. But if you read the news, you would think that campuses are a hotbed of date rape. You'd think that the world is much more violent than it used to be, that your chances of getting killed are much worse, because everybody focuses on the problems. And it'd be really nice if they could stop and say, all right, rape has gone way down, but that doesn't mean it's gone, so we still need to do something about it. Homicide has gone way down, but that doesn't mean it's gone, so it's still a problem. But it tends to be that we don't want to admit that, because otherwise we're worried people will ignore it. And so what that does for me is it says it's super important for us not to give up in those cases, because it's human nature to go, well, that just can't be fixed. So if I don't realize that poverty is actually way better all over the world, I say to myself, well, there's no point in trying to aid other countries. There's no point in worrying about other places that are poor, because it can't be fixed. Not realizing that, in fact, it's being fixed. Mm-hmm. And Pinker talks about this in the sense of, let's not look for radical change, let's look for tweaks to try to make it better. Because radical change means throwing away something that's not working, when in fact things are working really well. From an evolutionary perspective, what it does for me is it says, well, let's focus on those aspects of human nature that are really positive, like our kindness and our cooperation, and how can we aim them more broadly? But let's not forget that we evolved to become more cooperative and kind so we could be more effective killers, right? Evolution doesn't care about cooperativeness just for its own sake. Right. And so let's try to figure out ways to put the reins on our negative side, and let's try to find ways to promote our good side, because in fact, the world is becoming a much better place. So we are doing a good job of that.
Yeah, and I think we need to question what we watch in the media, because if it bleeds, it leads, and
exactly.
It's meant to get our attention from an evolutionary standpoint with bad news.
Yeah, bad is stronger than good. And so if I go out of my cave and I get eaten today, that's the end. If I go out of my cave and I kill something and eat it, well, that only got me till tomorrow. So the good thing can only help me a little. The bad thing can hurt me a lot. And so we evolved to be much, much more focused on the bad, on the negative. They carry a lot more weight. But in reality, the good is everywhere, and if we could allow ourselves to focus on that, keeping in mind that bad is stronger than good, one nuclear bomb ends everything, right? But we forget that all these other things are coming along and getting a lot better. And as you point out, they don't get in the news, they get ignored. Another great day here, 200 years ago, 70% of the world were farmers. How could you ever get a great coffee if everybody has to spend all their time, tilling the land at very low productivity? So these changes that have happened over the last 50, 100, 200 years are so important for the way we live our life today.